fonts. Fonts. What even is a font? Letters doing dress up? I don't know. The world is practically made of fonts, but also nitrogen and oxygen and hydrogen and carbon. Super hacker Steve Jobs implanted hundreds of these little suckers right into your frickin' phone. Boom, here's one. Boom, here's another. I can't even open up Microsoft Word without Stephen Jobs or Billy Gates coyly popping in a Calibri like it's the frickin' 90s. And think about this. What was the first font to ever exist? Okay, so this isn't actually an easy question to answer because most might say blackletter, not only because it's the first thing that comes up when you Google it, but also because it's the font created by one Mr. Johannes Gutenberg, who is credited as making the first mechanical movable type printing press. Basically, around 1439, Gutenberg noticed that the kids these days were getting real smart, and I mean really smart, like they were starting to read. What the heck? Only like 5 people can do that at this point. And so he had dollar signs in his eyes, or the 1400s European currency equivalent, and basically went, hey yo, what if we can make book faster and more efficient and most importantly cheap? And so the first font he used alongside this new innovation was none other than blackletter. But hey Jackson, this isn't actually the first font ever made, Jackson. Did you mention that? Well, no, I was just about to though, Jackson, so thanks for interrupting me. Dick. You see, Gutenberg's revolutionary printing press wasn't the first printing press ever made, though it was undoubtedly the most innovative with its ability to mass produce books the fastest that anyone has just ever seen before. Until, you know, it got better and faster. Let me introduce you to my boy Bi Sheng,
who
actually made the first movable type anything to really exist, though it was a lot more primitive. You see, my guy was using clay blocks at the time, which is a bit of a problem because they crumbled after like a few uses because he had to keep shoving these things into the fire just to actually print anything.
Okay, yeah, cool, bro, but like what the heck is the frickin' font?
I don't know. Because, strangely, no one in 11th century China thought to even give it a name. It turns out that a lot of these ancient types of type never even received a title for themselves only until centuries after their creation. Also, it's kinda hard to find information on this guy because his life wasn't really documented in much capacity. All I can really tell you is that there's a frickin' crater on the moon named after this guy. You don't see Gutenberg's space crater. I mean, the dude was so full of himself, he made his own frickin' Bible. Sheesh. And then there were typewriters, and dude, that stuff was banging! Look, believe it or not, it's actually pretty easy to fall down rabbit holes about fonts. How many fonts even are there? Well, this website says 1,001. But I got good money saying that that's kind of bogus. Oh, geez, you know, there's just so many fonts all the time. It's just so much to keep track of. I just wish things were simple again. Like, you know that eye chart? It may look simple, but it actually took quite a while to get to that point. The guy who made the first eye charts was some dude named Heinrich Kückler, and I gotta say that his tactics were a bit goofy. He basically cut out an assortment of visual stimuli from newspapers and magazines and stuff that he had just lying around the house and pasted them onto pieces of paper in decreasing size. And you know, it's the usual stuff that you might expect to see on an eye chart. You know, birds and frogs and guns and cannons and farming equipment. And it should be mentioned at least once that this probably wasn't the best idea, but to give the guy some credit, before this it was either people diagnosing themselves or a doctor holding a book in front of a kid and then kind of creeping back to see if he could still read the seance on chapter 3. So this was a good step forward. Plus, later he made a new rendition of his eye chart that had actual words on it, but it didn't catch on. And I can see why. I mean, look at this. I mean, I know it's probably in German, but I still couldn't tell you what half of these characters even are. But now, let me introduce you to the hero of our story, Hermann Snellen. These guys have great names, I love it. Who essentially busted this case wide open and went, hey yo, what if we introduce some actual visual consistency amongst the characters here? And so he got to work, spending countless nights refining his vision for vision, and what became of that effort is now the most famous test for visual acuity known to peoplekind. But Jackson, what is the font? Well, actually, boys and girls and others, it's not a font. It's actually an optotype because each letter on the chart was specifically fashioned on a 5x5 grid. That way, each letter would be able to stand out on its own while also maintaining a visual consistency across all the characters. Haha, pretty neat, huh? Wouldn't you agree that that's kind of better than putting birds and farming equipment? Everything's a font. Everything's a font. Okay, well, if everything's a font, is this a font? No, because that was written by hand, and that's God's font. which I guess in this case is Summer Rae Thin, or perhaps Stray Cat Hairline Condensed. Personal favorite of mine is Avenir. I got no bias, so anyone who accuses me of bias will be taken to court over blasphemy of my character. And I'm also ambivalent to Comic Sans. You know, it's just crazy how filled our lives are with fonts that we don't even pay a second glance at. Practically every word you see, whether it be on your phone, or on your consoles, or on your books, or on your magazines, or on your fridge magnets, or on your signs, or on your postcards, all of these fonts were either carefully picked out or crafted specifically for those instances. And it's just like, we just don't think about that because they're everywhere. They're ubiquitous. We have no need to think about it, and yet people get irrationally frustrated at the concept of either a company or someone else simply changing a font. When IKEA changed their font, people freaked out like it was the end of the freaking world or something, and it's just like, dude, chill. It's just Futura. People even freak out about the fonts on road signs. That's kind of weird. And I'm one of them. Okay. Can I just get this off my chest for a minute? Because when I was doing research for this video, I came across a predicament rather, that kind of weirded me out. I mean, it's kind of an odd story to get rustled over, but here goes. The font that was most common on road signs in the US and Canada was one appropriately called Highway Gothic. And it's kind of a classic. I mean, it's readable, it's versatile. Heck, you can slap this bad boy on anything and gee whiz golly, I could read the crap out of that. However, there were studies being done on a possible replacement for Highway Gothic that could improve legibility on road signs, especially in darker settings. And that one was called Clearview. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, aren't we being coy? And boy, howdy, people were fawning over this one. Oh, it's so good. Oh, it's so readable. Get a load of that 16% increased legibility in nighttime reading distances and an average of 2 to 8% in both day and night viewing. Oh, it's so perfect. Helen Keller can tell you from the grave that Clearview looks better. Look, my guy, I don't know if paraphrasing the illegitimate opinion of a dead person is the best way to market your new font. I mean, even Steve Jobs would agree with me on that one. Basically, it was gonna be the new hot font around your local roundabout. And it kind of was for a little while. They adopted it in 2004. They slapped that bad boy in a bunch of road signs. Things were going pretty good. And as always, until they weren't. Because additional studies were being done after the fact that suggested that the proposed increased legibility of this font on road signs wasn't so. The studies that were done previous were mainly based on the fact that they were using newer signage materials, so basically any font would look better on those bad boys. And so, in fact, the difference between the older Highway Gothic and the new and hip Clearview was narrower than previously established. Plus, it was actually already found to be less legible on negative contrasting signs, so like black text on a lighter background. And so because of all that, they ended up canning the font in 2016, right? It's gone, all gone. Only to bring it back 2 years later. So at this point, the timeline of events goes, hey, here's a font that we like that reads pretty well. Okay, well, thank you very much. We'll use it on road signs for many decades to come. But hey, here's this new font. It's kind of better, but for a price. Ooh, yum, 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 yes, please. Oops, sorry, my man. It's actually not that much better than the old one was. Aw, no sweat, my guy. We'll just take it off. No harm done. Actually, I kind of miss it, so let's bring it back like Stranger Things brought back the 80s. It's so insane. It's the most trivial thing ever, and yet just the way things unfolded just completely boggles my mind. Whew. Boy, well, I hope you learned something on this incredible journey about fonts. Okay, guys, okay, I have to come clean. I can't hold it in anymore. April Fools, my guy. I got you on this day of foolery. Oh man, it feels so good to get off my chest now. This video actually isn't about fonts. This video is actually about typefaces. It's about typefaces. This is a typeface. This is a font. The fonts are like the delivery method for a typeface. So whenever you hear me talk about like how a font looks, right, that's actually a typeface, not a font. They're not interchangeable.